Part 1. Cold Open. The last entry in Samuel Garrett's field journal, dated April 19, 1901, consists of only 7 words, written in a hand that slopes wildly across the page. Each letter pressed so hard the pencil tore through to the sheet beneath. They walk behind us. No shadows cast. The journal was found 3 weeks later by a supply wagon driver tucked inside Garrett's bedroll at an abandoned camp 17 miles northeast of Ludlow, California. His mining tools lay arranged in a perfect circle around the cold fire pit. His boots sat side by side at the tent entrance, laces still tied. His canteen was full. His rifle was loaded but unfired. Samuel Garrett himself was never found. The wagon driver, a man named Dutch Keller, who'd been running supplies to prospectors in that country for 8 years, later told the agent at the Ludlow station that something about the camp had made him unwilling to dismount from his wagon. He'd circled it twice, calling out, waiting for movement. When none came, he'd used a long hook pole to drag the bedroll close enough to reach without stepping down. He said the silence around that place was the wrong kind. Not peaceful. Not empty. Just wrong. When pressed to elaborate, Keller would only say that the air there felt like it was waiting for something. He refused to return to that section of the desert, even when offered double wages. Historical setup. In the spring of 1901, the Mojave Desert was not yet the mythologized wasteland it would become in later American imagination. It was simply a place where men went to extract value from emptiness, a practice as old as the West itself. The California gold rush had long since cooled, but its fever never entirely broke. By the turn of the century, prospectors had scattered across the entire basin and range country, chasing rumors of silver, copper, and lesser-known minerals. These were no longer the hopeful multitudes of 49, but solitary men or small partnerships, working claims in countries so remote that weeks might pass without seeing another human face. The stretch of desert between Ludlow and the Providence Mountains was particularly isolated. Stage lines avoided it. The few wagon roads that crossed it were maintained by no one and trusted by fewer. Water sources were sparse, and unreliable springs that flowed one season might be dry dust the next. A man who worked out there did so with the understanding that help was not coming. Samuel Garrett and his partner, a Norwegian immigrant named Lars Christensen, had staked a claim in a box canyon approximately 30 miles east of the tiny settlement at Ludlow. According to the land office records in San Bernardino, they'd filed in February of 1901, listing the claim as potentially copper-bearing. The filing described the location in the sparse language typical of such documents: coordinates, landmarks, estimated acreage. Nothing about the place itself. Nothing to suggest it was different from 1,000 other desert canyons. The two men had come out from Barstow together in early March, hauling their equipment and 6 weeks of supplies in a reinforced wagon pulled by a 4-mule team. They'd hired a guide for the first leg, a Mojave man named John Pascal, who knew the water holes and safe routes. Pascal led them as far as a seasonal spring 15 miles from their claim site, where he helped them cache supplies. When they parted company there, Pascal later recalled, both men had seemed in good spirits. Garrett had given him a silver dollar and told him they'd see him again in May when they came back through for more supplies. Pascal never saw either man again. The land they'd chosen was typical of the region. Creosote flats giving way to broken volcanic rock, scored with arroyos and punctuated by wind-carved formations that cast strange shadows in the slant light of morning and evening. The canyon itself ran roughly north-south, its walls rising perhaps 80 feet at the highest point, composed of dark basalt that held the day's heat long into the night. A seasonal wash ran through its center, dry in all but the wettest winters. There was no water in the canyon. This was not unusual. Prospectors often worked dry camps, hauling water from the nearest reliable source. What was unusual, according to the few people who later ventured into that area to piece together what had happened, was how perfectly silent the place was. Part 2. Even the desert, which seems quiet to those unfamiliar with it, maintains a constant low presence of sound. Wind moving through creosote, the tick and crack of rocks expanding and contracting with temperature, the distant calls of ravens, the rustle of lizards through dead grass. These small sounds create a texture to the silence, proof that the land is alive in its own way. The canyon where Garrett and Christensen made their camp offered none of this. Multiple accounts from later visitors, including a mining surveyor named Thomas Webb and a geological expedition from the University of California, remarked on the absence of animal life. No lizards, no birds, no insect hum. Even the wind, which blew constantly across the open desert, seemed to quiet when it entered the canyon, as though something absorbed it. Webb, whose report to the San Bernardino County Assessor's Office remains one of the few detailed professional accounts of the site, wrote, "The silence here is not restful but oppressive, a weight rather than an absence. I found myself speaking in whispers without meaning to, and my assistant, a level-headed man not given to fancies, asked to leave before we'd completed even half our intended survey work." But in March of 1901, when Garrett and Christensen first arrived, they would have known none of this. They were simply two men with a claim to work, following the same dream of sudden wealth that had drawn others into far stranger country. They pitched their tent on a level area near the canyon's northern end, where the walls offered some protection from wind. They dug a fire pit, arranged their tools, and set about the methodical work of prospecting, chipping samples, testing rock, searching for the telltale stains and formations that suggested mineral wealth. For the first 2 weeks, by all available evidence, everything proceeded normally. Slow build horror. Lars Christensen kept a log of their work, not a personal diary, but a practical record of each day's progress. The entries were brief and businesslike. Locations tested, samples taken, equipment repairs needed. The log was found with Garrett's journal at the abandoned camp, and its pages offer the first hints that something had begun to trouble the two men. March 14th, tested north wall. Some promising color, but not enough to pursue. Will move to east side tomorrow. March 15th, east wall proving difficult. Rock harder than expected. S. Thought he heard tools working in the distance, but no one else in this country as far as we know. March 16th, S. Heard the sounds again this morning before dawn. I heard nothing. Told him it's probably sound carrying strange from Ludlow or another camp. He didn't seem convinced. The entry for March 17th was slightly longer. We both heard it today. Sounds like someone working with a pick against rock, maybe half a mile off. But the sound doesn't echo right. Can't determine direction. When we stop working to listen, it stops too. When we start again, it starts again. Strange. For 3 days after that, Christensen made no mention of sounds. The entries returned to their terse factual format. Samples taken, water hauled, progress noted. Then, on March 21st, something walking around camp last night. Heard footsteps circling the tent. S went out with the lantern, but found nothing. No tracks in the dust. Thought maybe sheep or wild horses, but there were no tracks at all. Nothing. This is the first entry that suggests fear rather than simple curiosity. March 22nd. Neither of us slept well. The footsteps came back, walked circles around us for hours. Always the same pace, steady, neither hurrying nor slowing. I think they came right up to the tent wall at one point. Could hear breathing, but that might have been wind. Went out twice. Nothing there. No tracks. March 23rd. We stayed up and waited for it. S. took the first watch. I took second. Around 2 in the morning by my watch, it started again. We both went out together, one carrying the lantern and one carrying the rifle. We could hear it clearly. Footsteps in the dust, heavy, like boots. We turned toward the sound, and it was maybe 20 feet away by the sound of it. We walked forward. The steps moved away. We followed. They stayed always the same distance ahead. We followed them almost to the mouth of the canyon before S grabbed my arm and said we should go back. He was right. We were being led. The next entry is dated March 25th, suggesting Christensen had either been too unsettled to write or had considered the previous day's events not worth recording. Part 3. March 25th. We have decided to move our camp closer to the canyon mouth, where there's more open ground, less exposed here. Can see farther. S. says he sees someone watching from the canyon walls sometimes. I haven't seen this, but I trust him. We're both seeing less well from lack of sleep. The handwriting in the later entries grows less steady, the lines less straight across the page. March 27th. The sounds follow us during the day now, while we work, always just out of sight. Sometimes it sounds like one person, sometimes more. The sound of boots on rock, the sound of tools. Once I heard what sounded like someone laughing but very far away, or maybe something else. Whine through a gap. We don't talk about it while we're working, but at night we both admit we hear it. March 29th. We found something today. Not minerals, marks. On the south wall of the canyon. About 40 feet up where no one could have climbed without equipment. Marks like writing, but not any writing I've seen. S says it looks like old runes from Norway, but wrong. Too regular. Too deep. Like something carved them with tremendous force. We tried to photograph them, but the sun angle was bad. We'll try again tomorrow. There is no entry for March 30th. March 31st. S. wants to leave. We argued. I said we have another 3 weeks of supplies and haven't found anything valuable yet. He said nothing here is worth finding. Said the marks on the wall are warnings. I don't believe in such things, but I admit I'll be glad when we're done here and back in town. The quiet is worse than the sounds. April 2nd. More marks. Found them this morning carved into the ground around where our tent had been before we moved it. Neither of us heard anything in the night. The symbols are the same as on the wall. Deep gouges in the hard desert pan, like something dragged metal through stone. Would take hours to do this, would make tremendous noise. We heard nothing. April 4th. We are leaving. We'll come back with more men if we decide to pursue this claim. S. barely speaks now. I'm not much better. Last night something touched the tent. Not brushed against it. Touched it. Deliberately. I could see the fabric press inward where fingers might be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 indentations in a row. Moving slowly along the tent wall. S. was awake too. We both watched it. Neither of us moved. It traced the entire perimeter of the tent and then stopped. We sat in the dark until dawn. April 6th. We tried to pack today, but the mules are gone. All four. Tied securely last night and gone this morning. The ropes still tied to the picket stakes. No tracks. Nothing. We're on foot now. We'll cache what we can't carry and walk out. It's 17 miles to the nearest water. Can make that in a day. This is where Christensen's log ends. The remaining pages are blank except for one word written on April 7th in letters that trail off the page. Following Samuel Garrett's personal journal, less systematic than Christensen's work log, provides a different perspective on the same events. Garrett wrote in a more reflective style, and his entries reveal a mind trying to rationalize increasingly irrational circumstances. March 18th. Lars thinks I'm imagining things, but I know what I heard. Someone is working another claim near ours. The sound carries in strange ways out here. I remember Pascal telling us about how sound behaves in canyons. But why won't they show themselves? Why haven't we seen their camp? March 23rd. I need to write this down while my mind is still clear. We are both hearing things that shouldn't be possible. Footsteps with no source. Tonight we chased them, and I swear whatever made them was playing with us, leading us. I kept thinking of stories my grandfather told about the wilderness in Pennsylvania, about things that lived in deep woods and mimicked human sounds to lead travelers astray. But this is open desert. Nothing hides here. Nowhere to hide. March 28th. The marks on the canyon wall trouble me more than the sounds. They're deliberate, meaningful. But to what? Lars thinks they're warnings, but warning about what? The canyon was empty when we arrived. We're the only thing here. Unless we're not. Unless something was here first and we're the intruders, and these marks are territorial boundary stones like animals leave. Do we look like animals to them? Is that why they circle our camp at night like we're prey? Part 4. Peak Encounter. April 1st. I stood watch last night, 3 in the morning by my pocket watch. Clear sky, good moon, visibility maybe 100 yards in all directions. I heard the footsteps approaching from the north. Heavy. Steady. I could track them by sound. They came within 30 feet and stopped. I shone my lantern toward the sound. There was nothing there. I mean nothing. Not just no person, but no place for a person to have been. Flat ground. No rocks. No brush. But I could hear breathing. Patient breathing. And I had the distinct impression that something was looking back at me. Studying me the way I might study a scorpion under a rock. Curious but careful. April 5th. Lars is right. We need to leave. Something is very wrong here, and I don't think it's something we can solve by being rational about it. This morning I found our water barrel tipped over. Every drop gone, soaked into the ground. The barrel's bung was still sealed tight. I don't know how to explain that. Lars won't even discuss it. He just said, "We're leaving," and started packing. But the mules are behaving strangely. They won't face the canyon. Stand with their backs to it constantly. Ears pinned. Won't eat. April 7th. The mules are gone. We're walking out. 17 miles. Lars says we should leave now, middle of the day when we can see. I agree. We're taking water, rifles, and nothing else. I keep thinking about those marks on the wall, about how far up they were, about how deep they were carved, about what could do that. And I think about the footsteps we heard walking around us, how they sounded like boots, human boots, but left no tracks. Nothing leaves no tracks. Ghosts leave no tracks, and I don't believe in ghosts. April 8th. We walked all yesterday afternoon and into evening. Should have reached the spring where we cached supplies. Didn't find it. Everything looks the same. Lars swears we're going the right direction, but we're not finding landmarks. Camped for the night. Something circled our camp again, closer than before. Lars whispered to me in the dark, "They're hurting us." I think he might be right. Every direction we try to go seems wrong, like the land itself is shifting. We'll try again at dawn. April 10th. Lost. We are lost. 2 days walking, and nothing looks right. Can't find the spring. Can't find any of the landmarks we noted on the way in. Lars says the canyon is behind us, but when I look back, I can't see it. Too much haze. Or something. Water almost gone. We're rationing now. Still hearing footsteps every night. Multiple sets now. Walking in patterns around us. Lars asked me, "What if they don't want us to leave?" I didn't answer. April 12th. Found a wagon track. Followed it for 3 miles. It led in a circle. Back to our own footprints from 2 days ago. We are being turned around. Deliberately. Lars barely speaks. His lips are cracked. We're down to a few mouthfuls of water each. Saw something today in the distance. Looked like a man standing very still. We walked toward it. It moved when we got close. Stayed the same distance away. We followed for an hour before Lars collapsed. I got him up. We stopped following. April 15th. Found the spring. Thank God, found the spring. Drank carefully, slowly. Lars is in bad shape. Feet badly blistered, sunburned. We're camped here. We'll rest and then make for Ludlow. 7 more miles. Should be easy, but nothing has been easy. While Lars slept, I walked the perimeter and found tracks. Many tracks. Boot prints. Bare feet. Other things. All circling the spring. Some of the prints are very old, baked hard in mud that's now stone. Some are fresh, some are wrong. Wrong number of toes, wrong size. I didn't tell Lars. April 17th. Something wrong with time. My watch stopped. Lars's watch stopped. Same time on both. 3:13. Don't know if that's AM or PM. Don't know what day it is, really. Found another set of marks carved into the rocks around the spring. Same symbols as in the canyon. Lars saw them too, he said. They're everywhere. This is all theirs. We were never supposed to be here. I'm beginning to think he's right. April 18th. This entry in Garrett's journal is longer than all the others, written in a hand that grows less controlled as it progresses. Part 5. Last night was the worst night of my life, and I've lived through a mine collapse and a fire in Denver, and once I was nearly killed by a man with a knife in Tombstone. But last night was worse than all of that, because with those things, I understood the danger. I could see what wanted to hurt me. We were camped at the spring. Good water, good rest. We planned to push on to Ludlow this morning. 7 miles, nothing. We've walked 70 miles in circles, so 7 more should be easy. We should have left yesterday. We should have left the moment we drank our fill. But we were tired, and it was getting dark, and we told ourselves one more night wouldn't matter. It mattered. The sun set, and we built a small fire. We had a little coffee left. We boiled it and shared it and didn't talk about the tracks around the spring or the marks in the rocks or how my watch wouldn't wind no matter what I did. We just sat and drank coffee and tried to pretend we were just 2 prospectors at the end of a long trip. Soon we'd be in Ludlow. Soon we'd be drinking beer and eating food we didn't have to cook ourselves and sleeping in real beds. We were very careful to pretend. Around midnight the stars went out. Not clouds, not weather. They just went out. Like someone had drawn a curtain. Lars noticed first. He'd been lying on his back looking up, and he sat up suddenly and said, "Where did the stars go?" And I looked, and he was right. The sky was black. Not dark. Black. Empty. Wrong. And in that blackness we heard them coming. Footsteps. Many footsteps. From every direction at once. Not running. Walking. That same steady pace we'd been hearing for weeks. But now, there were dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. All walking toward us. I grabbed my rifle. Lars grabbed his. We stood back to back by the fire and waited. They came to the edge of the firelight and stopped. I can't describe what we saw because I'm not sure we saw anything. Or maybe we saw too much. Shapes. Man-shaped, but not men. Shadows that stood upright. Some were tall. Some were small like children. Some moved wrong, like their joints bent in directions joints don't bend. We could see them only at the very edge of the light, where the fire glow gave up and the darkness took over. If we looked directly at one, it seemed to fade. But at the corner of the eye, they were there, solid, real, watching. They stood there in a complete circle around us, perfectly still, perfectly silent except for the sound of breathing. Dozens of them, breathing at different rates, different rhythms, creating a sound like wind through a canyon but not wind, living, breathing. Lars fired his rifle into the air. Warning shot. The sound was wrong. Flat. Dead. Like shooting into a pillow. And they didn't react. Didn't flinch. Didn't move. Just kept standing there. Watching. Breathing. I realized they were waiting for something. We fed the fire. Kept it bright. As long as the fire burned, they stayed at its edge. Hours passed. We burned everything we had. Our bedrolls. Our packs. Spare clothes. We broke our rifle stocks and burned those. Anything to keep the light going. And they waited. Patient. The way you wait for a fire to burn down when you're in no hurry. Sometime near dawn, though we couldn't see dawn coming because the stars were still gone and the sky was still black, Lars said, "When the fire dies, they're going to come closer." I said yes. He said, "If we run, they'll catch us." I said, "Yes." He said, "I think they've always been here. I think this desert was theirs before it was desert. Before anything lived here that we'd recognize." I didn't answer that because I thought he might be right. The fire was down to coals. We had nothing left to burn. I could see the shapes leaning forward slightly, eager, ready. And then Lars did something I didn't expect. He started talking to them, out loud, in Norwegian at first, and then in English. He said, "We're leaving. We're going. We won't come back. This place is yours. We understand that now. Please let us go." Nothing changed. They didn't move, didn't react. And then Lars took his knife and cut his palm. Deep. Blood welled up dark in the firelight. He held his hand out toward them and said, "I give this freely. A trade. Our blood for our passage. Please." Part 6. Aftermath and Ending. I thought he'd gone mad from sun and fear, but then I understood. He was offering them something. Payment. Acknowledgement. And it worked. God help me, it worked. The shapes, they moved. Not toward us, but back. 1 step, 2 steps, retreating into the darkness, opening a path to the north, toward Ludlow. Lars looked at me and said, "We go now. We don't look back. We don't stop. If you hear me fall behind, you keep going. Promise me." I promised. He cut his other palm and gave me the knife, and I cut mine, both hands, blood dripping into the dead fire, and we walked. We walked north through that circle of shapes that parted before us and closed behind us. We walked through darkness that should have been dawn. We walked for hours or minutes or days. Time was wrong there, broken, not following rules. We heard them behind us. Following. Always the same distance back. Patient. Making sure we kept going. Making sure we didn't turn around. Didn't try to go back. I think Lars fell. I'm not sure. I heard something behind me. A sound. A gasp or a cry. Or maybe just wind. I kept my promise. I didn't look back. I kept walking. And the sun came back. Sudden and brutal and real. Hot desert sun. Blue sky. And I was standing on the wagon road half a mile from Ludlow, and my hands were cut and bleeding, and my clothes were burned and torn, and I was alone. I turned around then, looked back. Empty desert. Heat shimmer. Nothing else. I called for Lars. My voice sounded small and used up. No answer. No sign of him. No footprints behind me except my own. I walked into Ludlow. Got water at the station. The agent asked me what happened. I couldn't tell him. Didn't have words for it. Still don't. He said I'd been gone 6 weeks. I said that was about right. He asked where my partner was. I said I didn't know. He asked if I wanted him to send someone to look. I said no. Very quickly. Too quickly. He looked at me strange. I bought passage on the next stage to Barstow. Left my tools. Left everything. I just wanted distance. But before I left, I went back to the spring one more time. I don't know why. Had to see it in daylight, maybe. Had to know it was real. The marks were still there in the rocks. But there was something new. Fresh scratches in the dust. Words written in English in large, clear letters, as if someone wanted to be sure they were understood. We remember you. To provided side. We remember you. That was yesterday. I'm in Barstow now, writing this in a hotel room. I'll leave it with the land office when I file the claim abandonment papers. Let someone else decide what it means. I'm going back east. Back to places where the ground is old and settled and has forgot whatever it used to be. Where the things that lived here first are long gone and don't watch from the dark anymore. If Lars is still alive out there, I hope he forgives me for not going back. But I think he'd understand. I think he knew before I did. Some debts can't be paid. Some places don't want visitors. They want witnesses. And once they have them, they let them go so they can tell others, stay away. This is ours. This was always ours. That is the last entry in Samuel Garrett's journal. Aftermath and historical records. The official record of what followed is sparse and contradictory. According to the San Bernardino County Land Office, Samuel Garrett filed formal abandonment papers for the claim on April 23, 1901. The clerk who processed the paperwork, a man named Benjamin Howell, later noted in his personal correspondence that Garrett had seemed exhausted beyond measure and unwilling to discuss his experiences in detail. The abandonment papers listed the reason for withdrawal as unsuitable conditions, with no further elaboration. Lars Christensen was never found. A search party organized by the county sheriff made one attempt to locate him in early May. The party consisted of 4 men, including John Pascal, the Mojave guide, who'd originally led Garrett and Christensen to the area. They followed the wagon road out to the approximate location of the claim, using coordinates from the original filing. They could not find the canyon. The leader of the search party, Deputy Marshal Frank Weathers, reported that they'd searched a 10-mile radius around the coordinates and found numerous small canyons and rocky formations, none matching the description given in the claim documents. When pressed, Weathers added an unusual note. The men were uneasy in that country. Pascal particularly so. He stated that the area felt wrong to him and that his people avoided it when possible. We discontinued the search after 2 days as we could not definitively locate the claim site and conditions were deteriorating morale. John Pascal refused payment for his services on that trip. When asked why, he reportedly said, "I won't take money for going near that place. It's a bad place. Old bad." The rocks there remember things. Later attempts to relocate the canyon proved equally fruitless. Thomas Webb, the mining surveyor who'd remarked on the oppressive silence, visited the area in August of 1901 specifically to investigate the matter. His report states, "I was able to locate a box canyon approximately 3 miles south of the coordinates given in the Garrett-Christensen filing. This canyon matches some elements of the description, but the coordinates are significantly incorrect. Whether this is the same location is impossible to determine." Part 7. Ending reflection continues. Webb's report includes a curious addendum. "I observed numerous marks carved into the rock faces of this canyon, both on walls and ground surfaces. The marks appear deliberate, but do not match any Native American petroglyphs I have encountered in 17 years of survey work in this region. Their purpose and origin remain unknown." My assistant refused to remain in the canyon overnight, stating that he heard sounds after dark that troubled him. We departed earlier than planned. A University of California geological expedition passed through the same general area in 1903, conducting surveys for a proposed railroad route. Their published report makes no mention of unusual phenomena but includes a footnote stating, "One canyon of interest was examined only briefly due to equipment malfunction. 3 separate compass instruments gave contradictory readings within the space of minutes, suggesting significant magnetic anomalies. Further study recommended." No further study was ever conducted. Samuel Garrett returned to Philadelphia, where he'd been raised. City directory records show he worked as a bookkeeper for a coal company from 1902 until 1919. He married in 1904 and had 2 children. By all accounts, he lived a quiet, unremarkable life. He never returned to the West. In 1924, Garrett was interviewed by a young journalist named Martin Hendricks, who was researching a book about failed mining ventures in California. The interview transcript survives in the archives of the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. In it, Garrett discusses several of his prospecting experiences in neutral, factual terms. When Hendricks asks about the abandoned claim in the Mojave, Garrett's tone changes. "That claim was a mistake," he said. "The land there isn't meant for working. Some places should be left alone. The desert remembers what it was before we named it desert, before we drew lines on it and called it ours. Whatever lived there first, whatever lives there, still has a longer claim than any piece of paper filed in San Bernardino. I was lucky to leave. My partner wasn't. That's all I'll say about it." When Hendricks pressed for details, Garrett ended the interview. He died in 1931 of heart failure. Among his effects was his old prospecting journal, which his daughter donated to the Historical Society along with other papers. She included a note stating her father had kept the journal in a locked desk drawer and had forbidden anyone to read it during his lifetime. She'd honored that restriction until his death. The canyon, if it was ever definitively located, was never worked again. Maps from the early 1900s show the region as largely empty, marked only with warnings about scarce water and difficult terrain. Modern topographic maps show dozens of small canyons and formations in that area, none specifically identified. In the decades that followed, prospectors continued to work claims throughout the Mojave, but the specific area northeast of Ludlow developed a reputation for being unlucky. Claims filed there were routinely abandoned within months. Water sources proved unreliable. Equipment malfunctioned. Men reported hearing things, seeing things. Nothing specific enough to document, but enough to make them leave. By the 1,930 seconds, that section of desert was largely avoided. By the 1,950 seconds, when new mining technologies made previously unprofitable claims viable again, no one bothered to revisit the old Garrett Christensen site. The land office records were transferred to county archives, where they remain today, along with Garrett's journal and Christensen's work log documents that raise more questions than they answer. Ending reflection. There are places in the American West that resist documentation. Corners of the map where compasses spin and coordinates seem to shift, and the land itself appears to have agency. The Mojave holds many such places, ancient, vast, indifferent to the brief century and a half of human occupation we call history. What Samuel Garrett and Lars Christensen encountered in that unnamed canyon in 1901 has never been explained. The official conclusion, insofar as there was one, categorized it as death by exposure, complicated by dehydration, and possibly psychological distress brought on by isolation. Lars Christensen was listed as missing, presumed dead. The case was closed. But the evidence that remains, the journals, the reports, the testimony of men who went looking and found nothing or found too much, suggests a different story. Not a story of men who got lost in the desert and succumbed to heat and thirst, but of men who stumbled into territory that was occupied long before the desert had a name, and who paid the price that trespassers pay.